This presentation is brought to you by Arizona State University's Julianne Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability and a generous investment by Julianne Wrigley.
We live in a time where there's not a lot of hope, and I think what we're trying to do in San Francisco, at least with our citizens, is give them a sense of hope, show them what is possible, that they can contribute, that these large global forces like climate change can be dealt with if lots of people that care make a difference. And it's not just about caring. A lot of people care. Our whole thing is we need to be able to measure it. Let's not just talk about doing something. Let's talk about how we can measure doing something. I like these ads from Chevron because if Chevron's focused on oil and the number of cars that will be on the streets in 2030, we probably should be. Just these facts always kind of stun me, looking at where oil comes from and where it is. Most of these 5 countries aren't super friendly to the United States. We kind of forgot the oil security issue, but it remains very much alive. Our security and our energy are very much intertwined, as are the forces of pollution. You know, when I talk with my kids about I have a 7 and a 10-year-old, and you kind of look up at the stars on a starry night. It is unbelievable how many stars there are, and how insignificant we are. And sometimes that insignificance makes us feel kind of like we can't do anything, but really it is empowering to think about our planet and what we can actually achieve, both negatively and positively. So this is the famous chart of where we are and where we can't get to. The magic threshold of 500 parts per million is a number that scientists tell us leads to irreversible climate change. So there's kind of 2 elements of climate change. One is mitigation. Mitigation talks to the issue of what we can do to stop getting that number going up, and the other is adaptation, what we need to do to deal with climate change impacts that are going to come if we don't act, or even if we do. This is the second chart, which is kind of peak oil. Half the room in most cases care about climate change. The people that don't care about climate change worry that we're running out of oil. And so the dates here kind of vary a little bit. We're either running out, you know, in 16 years or 26 years. But once you get to peak, and every single person in the oil industry will agree. I was meeting with, yesterday in San Francisco, the Ugandan oil minister was in San Francisco. They're talking about how great it was that they found oil in Uganda, and I was like, yeah, but globally, we're running out. We're absolutely running out. So the good news is we have just enough oil to cause catastrophic climate change. The bad news is that we soon won't be able to fill up our cars. Other thing that's really driving the debate is insurance losses. So the insurance industry holds a lot of the keys to the climate change debate. It used to be that when you wanted to insure your home on the eastern seaboard, they would look at historical data relating to all the storms that happened in the last 50, 100 years, and that's how your premium would be set. Now they're looking at climate change models coming out of the International Panel on Climate Change and saying, wow, why would we be crazy enough to insure these houses? There's going to be hurricanes all up and down the eastern seaboard. We're not going to insure your house. If you don't insure your house, you can't get a mortgage. Difficult enough to get a mortgage as it is, but if they strip your insurance, you cannot get a mortgage in the United States. So you ended up with more stranded toxic assets that no one will insure. Cities ultimately have a lot in common. We all have waste and recycling. We all have water issues. We all have transportation issues. We all have urban forests. We all have energy. And mayors used to be thought of as kind of people that filled up potholes. I think now the shift has come that mayors are seen as people that are on the front line in the battle of climate change. And shockingly, 80% of the world's CO2 comes from cities. So my background in international law would say, you know what, the people that really deal with the international crisis on climate change are going to be the state departments because they have to come up with treaties. But these treaties, we have about 400 international environmental treaties on everything from transboundary movements of hazardous waste to Convention on the Trade of Endangered Species, and most of them are completely ineffectual. They don't do anything. No one implements them. They're paid lip service to. And so if we want anything done, my position is we need to include cities. They produce 80% of the world's CO2, and they're not at the table, and so we need to bring them to the table. This is a picture of kids swimming in a beautiful river in Jakarta, in Indonesia, and this is kind of, we could have cities like this. This city exists now, this scene exists today. We have a choice about what the cities of the future will look like. We brought together for UN World Environment Day in 2005, 70 mayors from the largest cities, basically to start talking for the first time about the environment as an urban issue that they have responsibility to deal with. We signed an accord of 21 action items that each city could take, called the UN Urban Environmental Accords, and really just tried to move the agenda forward. It led to something called C40, which is 40 cities dealing with climate change, and I'm actually going to Seoul in May for that meeting. The first meeting was in London, the next meeting was in New York with Mayor Bloomberg, and now we're going to Seoul. So the kind of momentum behind urban environmental issues is heating up.
This presentation is brought to you by Arizona State University's Julianne Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability for educational and non-commercial use only.